Good evening. Welcome to June 5th City Council meeting on the budget. We're going to start with a moment of silence, flag salute and a moment of silence. Councilor O'Hara, will you lead us, please?
Just want to have a moment of silence for a gentleman who was a city councilor to our wonderful city back in 1968 and 71, Argel Lotzenheiser. He lived in Magnolia, raised his family in Magnolia. He's from Indiana. They moved back to Indiana. He passed away the other day at age 99. Thank you.
Okay. I want to thank everybody for coming here tonight. So this is our City Council meeting on the budget. So this is our opportunity to listen to the citizens of Gloucester and their public input on the budget this evening. We will not have any motions, or we will not be debating any of the budget this evening. So we are here to listen to any objections or any proposals or anything that the residents would like the City Council to hear this evening. Is there anybody that would like to speak on the budget this evening? Oh. Sorry. We're going to have an approval of the minutes from the Standing Committee of Budget and Finance. Councilor Cox? It's been moved. We have a second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. So I will open up the public hearing 2018-028, public hearing for the fiscal year 19 proposed budget from the and the mayor's recommended budget. So I'll open the public hearing, and there is anybody to speak on the budget this evening. Please step to the podium. Name and address, please.
I know the drill. Ainsley Smith, 14 Pine Street. Good evening, councilors, and thank you for the opportunity to share the concerns of the Clean City Commission. The Commission would like to address several questions and concerns regarding the budget appropriations to the Department of Public Works as it relates to keeping the city's residential neighborhoods, public parks, and beaches clean and well-maintained. On page 4 of the budget process, it says that there is a $100,000 increase in the sanitation and recycling curbside pickup contract. We would appreciate clarification for the reason of this increase and to know if there are any proactive ways to reduce or negotiate this increased fee in future years. Additionally, as best we can tell from deciphering the entire process, the total DPW budget is proposed at just under $11 million, roughly a 3.92 increase compared to 2018. At the same time, beach revenue is anticipated to increase from just over $1.4 million to $1.825 million for fiscal year 2019, a 27% increase. We believe it is essential that the increase in beach revenue, which ultimately reflects an increase in tourist traffic to the entire city, should be reflected back in increased funding to maintain the beaches and public spaces that these tourists are coming to visit with adequate trash removal. We strongly urge the councilors to review the DPW appropriations and ensure that there is sufficient funding for all city-maintained barrels, especially those at beaches and public parks, to be emptied whenever full or daily during peak season, including collections on Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays, as that is when they are most full and present the largest opportunity to create unnecessary litter, unnecessary headaches for residents, and presents a poor image towards our guests. Additionally, we urge the councilors to coordinate DPW's budget with the police department's budget to allocate funding for the enforcement of littering violations at beaches, parks, and other public spaces, and for enforcement needed for residents who put out trash and recycling excessively early in violation of the current trash ordinance, as this creates opportunities for gulls, coyotes, and other pests to get into trash bags, wind to blow recyclables out of open-top bins, and other avoidable opportunities that create litter in our residential neighborhoods. We appreciate the efforts of the councilors during this difficult process and look forward to our continued efforts towards improving the city. We are confident that the city shares our priorities in having a clean city for all to enjoy, and we are confident that they will allocate the proper resources to support the city's necessary maintenance and enforcement of existing ordinances that will achieve that shared vision. Thank you.
Thank you, Ainsley. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on the budget this evening? Name and address, please.
Teresa Danaher, 32 Cherry Street. I'm a teacher at O'Malley. I speak on the matter of necessary funding for our Gloucester schools and the students, not only as a teacher, but as a concerned person living in society. We have a new group of young adults moving into our society this coming Sunday, and I want to make sure the graduates in the years that follow are allowed the same, if not more, advantages and privileges as the class of 2018. If we begin to whittle away at our budget by removing or cutting back our arts, languages, vocational, technology, and special needs programs, we are not just cutting back to trim the fat. We're denying an education and experience for all students who need and deserve the best. We will be denying our students an opportunity to realize they may not be able to write the multi-paragraph essay on the Revolutionary War, offering some awesome statistics on body count and weather influences, but they might master a strong background in the use of technology because of their exposure to Google and Chromebooks. Or they may be able to make that engine purr even better than the certified mechanic if given the proper tools and equipment. When we begin to cut areas of the special needs program or remove electives from our schools, we are denying our society an enriched group of up-and-coming citizens who can go out in the world with confidence in their life skills and strong career interests, which in the end will ensure their independence and productivity, and that means less of a burden on society. When we cut our budget, we will deny our children the ability to go into the world to fend for themselves so they don't have to depend on support from their community or state. When we cut the staff that supports our students, we deny the students the ability to work in small groups for better success or to be in mainstream classroom that includes all learners with the help of the ELL and paraprofessional personnel. I teach English. We'll always offer this content along with math, science, and history, as we should. These basics are needed to enrich our children in the areas of communication and critical thinking, especially for those who are off to college. They need these content keystones to build upon in their first year of college. But these mathematicians, literature geeks, wordsmiths, and lab rats are among the lucky ones. They'll be exposed to areas of learning where they will be able to explore and unveil their talents and skills, then major in the area. But for some of our K through 12 students, the only years they will be able to find their talent and skill will be in the electives and the programs we offer them in our schools. If we remove or cut back these areas in the electives and special needs programs that include much needed staff, we will shortchange our students and deny them the quality education that I'm proud to be a part of today here in Gloucester. We want to grow and expand our curriculum, not cut back or remove any of it. We can't deny the computer geek, the next contractor, or the mechanic the opportunity to realize their calling. We can't deny the special needs student who needs that behavioral specialist and small setting to regroup so they're able to rejoin the whole class population, so they'll be able to join society when the time comes. They learn this in the K through 12 years. If we whittle away at our budget, we are denying our students the best of the best. And how can we ask our students to offer the best of their best when we are cutting back our best? Please think twice about our students, their future, and our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Teresa. We had received your email earlier today also. Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Can I have a show of hands of how many other people would like to speak? Okay, thank you.
My name's Alice Morris. I live at 2 Kent Road in West. 2 Kent Road, like Superman, Clark Kent. I want to support everything that she said about not cutting back the school budget. I just bought a house in Gloucester. I convinced my mother-in-law to move from Maine to come down here because I thought Gloucester was a city worth living in. I felt shocked at the proposed cuts for the school budget after I made this massive life decision to put down roots here. My daughter is not a traditional academic child, and I really liked everything that Gloucester had to offer above and beyond that. She does photography, she does, film and things like that, and Gloucester had all sorts of wonderful things, and now I'm terrified that I've made a terrible decision to move to a city that's cutting all the stuff that I was hoping my daughter would get. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak tonight? You can step right up to the podium, please.
My name is Barbara McLaughlin, and I live at 7 Radcliffe Street on Rocky Neck. And I was recently part of a strategic planning meeting for the library, and it was held on Rocky Neck. Excuse me. It was held on Rocky Neck, and I would say that most of the people there were retired people. And when asked what they felt the most important aspects of our community were and what the most important things were to them and the development of the community, one of the top things came up as support for the schools and valuing our school system. So I just wanted you to know that it is not only the young people who are concerned, but it's also retired people who are concerned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's John McElhenney. I live on Allen Street in Gloucester. I wanted to come up now because she referred to the younger people with kids, and so I thought if I came up now, I'd fit into that category. But joking aside, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to put a sort of human face, has already started happening here, on these discussions, so the sort of people involved, and tell our story a little bit. First, it's a tough decision. I appreciate the thoughtfulness you're giving to this, because I get it. These decisions are hard. You've got these competing requirements and competing needs when it comes to budgeting, but I just wanted to give one perspective on it, which would be my family's. So my wife, Ari, and I have 3 kids, 2 of whom are already in the Gloucester Public Schools in O'Malley and in East Gloucester, and then a third who will be headed there in a year and a half, and we're proud Gloucester Public School parents. And if I were on the city council, I would totally understand not wanting to hear from people who are always, give me money, give me money, give me money. But I think this is exactly the opposite where the Gloucester Public Schools are concerned, because we have so many examples of parents who are volunteering, grant funding being pursued. The Gloucester Education Foundation is just a great example of a collaboration with non-city money, privately raised money, and I think this is just a great example of a funding example that's working. That is, the schools here aren't just with their hand out asking for money. So I just think, that the partnership that we're talking about here, private and city-funded, is working. I would also like to, just a personal example of people we know. As I mentioned, we're proud Gloucester public school parents, but we know good friends of ours that do choice their kids out to Rockport, to Manchester, to private schools. I just think it's important to send the right message to those parents and others, like one we've heard from tonight, who are considering coming here or who have just come, that in Gloucester funding the public schools adequately is important. Just sending that message is a really important message. And I hope will encourage students and their families to choose the Gloucester public schools. And then third, I would just end with the good things that are happening in the public schools. Just on a personal level, so my son in O'Malley this year is just thriving. We were waiting for the crisis to come, heading to any middle school, and it hasn't. On the contrary, Luke's done great. Learning, it's opened his eyes to current events, to different parts of the world. Our daughter in 4th grade at East Gloucester School has learned to love math. She's fascinated with maps herself. And so I would just say we've got a good thing going in Gloucester. So in the last 5 or 10 years, things have really improved in the public schools. And I hope that we'll be able to continue that and send the right message with an adequate level of funding. So thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joel Favaza, 28 Middle Street. I'm here speaking solely as a citizen, not in my capacity as a school committee member, not in my capacity as a local attorney. I would like the council, in deliberating on this budget in the future, to think about how this budget relates to long-term planning. By charter and by code of ordinances, the administration is required to produce both a 5-year and a 10-year capital plan, and this budget should tie into achieving the goals set forth in that plan. So I'd ask that you look at this budget in the lens of how is this achieving the goals set out in the 5-year and the 10-year capital plan. And if you don't have that, why don't we have a 5-year and a 10-year capital plan by which we can gauge whether this budget is appropriate or not? The reason I bring this up is that a lot of the financial challenges the city is facing, I believe, are a result of failure to plan previously. And if we continue down this path, we're never going to find ourselves in a better situation. 2 quick examples of failure to plan. Right now we have upgrades being made to the fire department that are absolutely necessary, but we still don't know whether they're going to be in that building for another 2 years, 20 years. There's no plan as to what we're doing with that, and so we're spending money that potentially we may be short-sighted. Smaller example, last year we went and had LED light bulbs installed on the street lights throughout the city. I believe those cost a couple $100 a piece. They were put in throughout Main Street. Less than a year later, we went and tore out the entire light stands themselves and replaced it with new decorative lights. I'm not making a judgment on those lights one way or the other, but it was awfully silly that we spent money replacing the heads to only tear the things out 9 months later. Again, that sounds like a lack of planning. Those lights shouldn't have gone in if we were just going to be tearing the entire fixtures out 9 months later. So I just ask that you look at the plan and figure out whether this budget helps achieve goals articulated by that plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Bean. Good evening. My name is Jessica Bean, 19 Corliss Ave. And so I'm here tonight to ask the City Council to. I want to support funding our schools also. So I have a daughter that's in the 3rd grade going into 4th, and I am also a special ed paraprofessional at the high school. I also co-lead a Girl Scout troop. And through these various roles, I see much of what is happening in our schools. First of all, I want to say I love my job. I work with students with moderate special education disabilities at the high school. And when I look at the budget and I see cuts to paras, I think, if they come at the high school, I'm not really sure. We feel like we're working with a skeleton crew now. I'm not really sure. Will put it together and we'll make it work. But then I also think, well, what if it comes at the elementary school? My daughter's going into 4th grade. She was recently diagnosed with inattentive attention deficit disorder. I'm not really sure if you know much about that, but someone with inattention deficit disorder often goes unnoticed because they're quiet, their work doesn't get done, and when you don't have a paraprofessional in a class with students like that, then these students are missed and they fall behind. And I know this because I was one of those students, and it would just be heartbreaking to see the same thing happen to my daughter because she didn't have a severe disability that called for a para, and we feel the need to cut down on paras. So, I just really want to put that out there, that it does seem that, maybe you can't see firsthand the help that they give, but that extra hand in class can be really helpful, especially even if there's just a behavioral problem, or even if it's just someone going by the desk and running their fingers along. I also wanted to say that co-leading a Girl Scout troop, I can really tell that these schools in the Gloucester public school systems are phenomenal. I mean, we range from kindergarten to 5th grade. We have some girls going up to O'Malley next year. And these girls can whip out a budget based on their cooking money. Their math skills are incredible. Their verbal skills, they're putting together a project to replace the picnic benches at Beeman to have games on them to encourage kids to play together. And so, that speaks greatly to our school system, that we have girls that want to improve our school and put their effort. They could have done anything in the city, and they were like, we want to do it in our backyard in Beeman, and because we love our schools. And I think that I want to back Teresa up on, if we start taking things away from these kids, we can't give them the education that we're currently giving them. And I want to back Alice up. My husband and I moved here 7 years ago. We put roots down here. We've been very impressed, and I just don't want to see cuts made from this beautiful town and this wonderful school system that everybody has worked so hard to put together, because having a child in it and working in it, I can tell you it's phenomenal, from special ed all the way up to AP. And I feel very fortunate to have gotten to see that firsthand and to have my daughter in it, and I just hope that we can give the schools the funding that it deserves to continue.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak?
Hi there. Amy Donnelly, 9 Sumner Street. I am a 8th grade science and math teacher and the science coordinator at the middle school. I can't emphasize enough that the best investment Gloucester can make is in its youth. We need to support our kids. We have a group of talented educators who, from our superintendent through our school committee on down, that are invested in our students, and they will do the best they can with whatever you give them. That's what we do. But after 18 years, I'm seeing that we're reaching a breaking point. If we keep cutting, services are not going to look like what they look like. We are making up the difference in grants. We have teachers writing grants around the clock to make up the differences in materials, in supplies, in equipment. One thing that grants will not pay for is teacher time. So as you cut paraprofessionals and teachers, we don't get that back in a grant. There's really not a grant available that will pay for time. And every study across the board says small class sizes and that attention that teachers and people can give, adults can make a difference. So you've got to invest in our kids. There's just no other way. As educators, we're doing everything we can, but without the funding, it's just not going to happen. So please have our back here. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else like to speak on the budget this evening?
Good evening. Jonathan Pope, 16 Marble Street. And like Joel, although I'm a member of the school committee, I'm here speaking solely for myself. There's a delta of $462,000 between what you have before you and what the school committee passed. And I just want to make it clear that the school committee's job is to put forth what they feel they need to fulfill their mission. And our mission is dictated by parents, by students, teachers, but it's also dictated by Mass General Law and the federal government. There are many things that we have to comply with and do every year. We will resolve the budget. We are the only department that gets to actually do that. And believe me, I understand that you cannot have a great school system without a great fire department and without the DPW taking care of our buildings and fixing the roads and plowing the streets, and the police and all the work they do, as well as all the supporting departments that pitch in, because they all take part in part of the schools in some way or the other. We understand that, and we understand what you're up against. We know that there's how much money there is. We know that there's not a lot of money to go, enough money ever to go around to do everything that everybody in the community wants and expects. There's potholes, there's ambulance service, you know, there's leaky roofs, there's a lot of things. But we still have to put that forward. We will make it work, wherever we end up. But what I want to say about that is there's an intrinsic and fundamental problem here that we're saying the same thing. But right now, the economy is supposed to be great. Unemployment in Gloucester is 2.9%. And yet, we don't have enough money. So what is the problem? There are things that fall to us. They fall to the city too, but they fall to us, that are dictated by the state and by the federal government that we have to do, but they don't pay for. And I'll give you one example, or maybe five if I feel like it. But they had a review of the foundation budget, and I'm not going to go into what that is exactly, but basically it's what the state says you should be spending on every student that you have. And your Chapter 70 money, which comes to the city, is dictated by how many students you have and the foundation budget, and essentially your property values, and they determine a percentage of what the foundation budget for the number of students they're going to give you, depending on your property values. Now, Gloucester has 25.6% special needs students. Foundation budget gives you credit for 4%, whether you've got 25% or 10%. There's nothing in there, and there's nothing in the state rules that changes that. So if you have a lot of special needs kids, you don't get any more money from the state in the Chapter 70. There are a lot of things like that. We could go into the school choice and special needs factors. But what I really want to say is the problems in Gloucester are not that we're spending too much money. It's that we don't take enough in. So this morning I looked up some like communities that have about the same amount of property value as we do. And then I also looked up how much money they're taking in. So Gloucester has $6,267,000 worth of property that they tax, property tax on. And our property tax for that, we receive $81,310,000. Okay? That's nothing to do with Chapter 70 or beach revenue or anything else. That's just what we get from property tax. Salem has $5,067,000 worth of property. and they got $89 million in property tax. So they have $200,000 less, but they're getting $7,000 more. Marlboro has $5,390,000. They're getting $97,000 in property tax. 97,000 in a million in property tax, sorry. So they have almost $1 billion less in property, taxable property, yet they're getting $16 million more. I have a few more, but New Bedford's the one that sticks out. New Bedford has $5,888,000 worth of property, and they get $119 million in property tax. So something to think about next year, because everything we hear, because of the way we're doing our budget this year, the way we're going to balance our budget, is we're putting ourselves in a hole for next year. And I suspect the city's doing the same thing. And we really need to start thinking about the revenue side of what we're doing, not the spending side. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on the budget this evening? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. I just want to thank everybody personally, along with the rest of the City Council, for showing up this evening. We're discussing $100+ million budget, and we had, a dozen people show up this evening. So it really means a lot to us that you guys show up and give us your thoughts and your input on what we need to do for this fiscal year and the following fiscal year. So we honestly appreciate you guys coming out this evening. Thank you very, very much. Do we have a motion to adjourn? So moved. We adjourn.